rules you have are not based in U.S. law, right? U.S. law doesn't recognize restrictions on hate speech. It's considered free speech. So if you want to stand in a street corner and yell the craziest things in the world, you're allowed to. On your platform, Twitter, you're not allowed to. So even in that sense alone, your rules do have an ideology behind them. I don't completely disagree. I think, I don't want harassment. But the reason I bring this up is getting into the discussion about democratic health of a nation. So I think it can't be disputed at this point that Twitter is extremely powerful in influencing elections. I'm pretty sure you guys published recently a bunch of tweets from foreign actors that were trying to meddle in elections. Mm-hmm. So even you as a company recognize that foreign entities are trying to manipulate people using this platform. Mm-hmm. So there's a few things I want to ask beyond this, but wouldn't it be important then to just, at a certain point, Twitter becomes so powerful in influencing elections and giving access to even the president's tweets that you should allow people to use the platform based under the norms of U.S. law? First Amendment, free speech, right to expression on the platform. This is becoming too much it's becoming too powerful in how our elections are taking place. So even if you are saying, well, hate speech is our rule and a lot of people agree with it, if at any point one person disagrees, there's still an American who has a right to this, to access to the public discourse, and you've essentially monopolized that, and not completely, but for the most part. So isn't there some responsibility on you to guarantee, at a certain extent, less regulation happen, right? Like, look, if you recognize foreign governments are manipulating our elections, then shouldn't you guarantee the right to an American to access this platform, to be involved in the electoral process?
I'm not sure I see the tie between those things, but I will address one of your points, which is we're a platform that serves the world. So we're global. 75% of the users of Twitter are outside of the United States.
Oh, right.
So we don't apply laws of just one country when we're thinking about it. We think about how do you have a global standard that can meet the threshold of as many countries as possible, because we want all the people in the world to be able to participate in this conversation.
And also meet elections like the Indian election coming up as well.
Right. And my understanding is you were also accused of being biased against conservatives in India recently. There was a report on that, as well as you held up a sign that said something offensive about the Brahmin. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in that sense, even in other countries, you're accused of the same things that you're being accused of by American conservatives.
So there you have it. You just heard the lawyer there for Twitter, the female there, openly say that they are a globalist company that usurps U.S. law and has massive power over our U.S. elections. And so they openly admit, we're globalists, and we usurp your United States Bill of Rights that your own government has to follow, but we will not, because we are focusing on a global community. When, of course, they don't even mention, but they know just as well, but they purposely didn't say, that they have the ability to tailor specific rules on Twitter in different countries. They can tailor it. Just like in China, they tailor what is allowed to be seen on Facebook or Google or any of these other platforms, the Chinese-style censorship. So they're able to do that. The point is that they're starting to bring that here to the Western world and usurping U.S. law. And so, I mean, if they really wanted to do that, they could tailor it to where the United States, if you're in the United States, then you basically get to see everything because of the First Amendment, unless it clearly is a call to action, a call to commit violence that is an actual call to action. You see, there's a difference if you say, oh, I wish that Jack Dorsey would just die to, and I'm not saying this, but there's a difference between that and saying, I want to kill Jack Dorsey. Like, there's two different things there, and one is a call to action. You know, if you say, oh, I'm going to, or something like that, that's a call to action, where the other one is not. You know, you're expressing an opinion, you know, or a hope, or whatever. It's totally different, and they openly admit that they usurp United States law. And if you watch the entire podcast here on the Joe Rogan Experience with Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gotti or whatever her name is there. It's the one lawyer there for Twitter. The entire podcast, she's literally talking in this corporate robotic lawyer speak, and while openly admitting all this stuff. So a lot of people aren't catching some of the things that was being said here. And you see a bunch of stuff where they're honestly going after, they're openly going after conservatives, but then saying that it's okay because conservatives are hurtful to the specific protected groups that they've deemed to be protected groups. So if you're a conservative and you say to a transgender person, and you say, say it's a male who's become a woman, you say, listen, you were born with an XY chromosome, you will always have an XY chromosome, you will never have an XX chromosome, so biologically, scientifically speaking, you will never be a woman. You will always be a man, and that's just how it is. Twitter considers that hateful and will remove you from the platform for saying something like that, which is in direct violation of freedom of speech. The Supreme Court has ruled that hate speech specifically is a protected form of free speech. And what they call hate speech nowadays is exactly what I just presented to you, is exactly what I just offered you, which is if you were to just say to a transgender person, you will always be a man, you will never be a woman, and that's in line with biology and science, that's considered hate speech. The First Amendment, the Supreme Court has ruled that that is 100% in line with the First Amendment. So, but not to Twitter. Not to Twitter. And so, then they go on and start talking about how these foreign countries like China and Russia are using Twitter to meddle in elections. And there's definitely some of that going on. There's Twitter bots on Twitter, or Russian Twitter bots on Twitter and stuff like that are organizing different things to try and get a certain result out of a U.S. election. Twitter's aware of this and openly admits that that's what's going on and has removed some of them. But the point that Tim Pool actually made on this podcast was basically, yeah, we understand and you get this. So, but why would you usurp United States law and the United States Supreme Court and say that the First Amendment has no bearing, and then just get rid of conservatives based off of their beliefs and say that their beliefs are hateful to protected groups, when you've got foreign entities meddling in elections and trying to get a desired result? You then have a duty to allow every American to speak. Why would you? So you're eliminating Americans' ability to speak. Certain Americans with certain ideologies and certain mindsets, you're eliminating their ability to speak in the public square and discuss ideas, while at the same time not necessarily allowing, but you are allowing, because as long as these Russian bots are within your guidelines, then you allow them to operate. And as long as they can, with a whole bunch of different troll farms and a bunch of different accounts that they have put out, and if you don't put out a certain narrative and then you don't catch them all, and as long as one of them goes viral and then they get deleted, well, it's already gone viral. And so they don't care if they get deleted. So they have no incentive. They only have an incentive to follow the rules in the very beginning, and then to just be allowed to be on, and then they can start putting out whatever they want. And if you ban them, it's too late. It's already out there, and they don't care if they get banned. So you have foreign entities that are manipulating the elections. Twitter's aware of this, and then says, we're a globalist company, and we are aware of how much immense power Twitter has over U.S. elections, and we usurp United States law, particularly the Bill of Rights and Constitution, even more specifically the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights, which is the most important thing that in our country's history. It's that First Amendment is the most important thing. That's why the founders made it the First Amendment. And then, of course, you have the Second Amendment, right? So if the First Amendment doesn't work, and you get to a point where you can't just fix the problem with your words, then you go to the Second Amendment, and Thomas Jefferson and many other founders have made that very clear when they say those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. The founders were brilliant men, and they told us exactly how to handle things. They gave us a blueprint of how to handle things. So we have a giant corporation, a globalist corporation, openly admitting that they usurp United States law to meddle in the elections. There you go. They openly admitted it. What do you do with that? Figure it out. We all got to figure it out.